Testing. Marge, everybody is a main guest.
Oh, okay. Yes, thanks. Thanks for the
I'm
correction.
just here to contribute,
Okay.
and I like what Professor Migaya Kech, whom I know, has said. I want to add something, Marge, on what he has said. Professor Migaya Kech is 100% correct, but I think he may have inadvertently left out something that is also true. Um, People like Singoe have gained financially, personally, from the government, from the rot. I know him also, and I know for a fact that by the time he was appointed PS, he was living in an apartment on Thika Road. And within 2 months, he had bought a luxurious property in Karen worth 100 million Kenya shillings in cash. And I know many other properties that he has bought. So he thinks this is a threat, direct threat to him personally. And this is what is unfortunate. So I think that unfortunately, intelligence does not help. And that is why this struggle is more about integrity than intellectual intelligence. A lot of intelligent people in Kenya have turned out to be some of the most corrupt. And they use their intelligence to conceal their corruption and to the detriment of the population. That's all I wanted to say. I dropped the mic. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So let's proceed in this order. And Hilary, do you want to say something before we proceed?
No. I'm okay. I'm okay. I was checking that other speakers are coming in. I'm okay. Go ahead.
Okay, let's proceed in the order of Dr. Milton, Simon, Ask, Blues, and Engineer, and it's 2 minutes each. So after 1 minute, you look at my profile. I'll be raising my hand, and then you know you have a minute to complete your presentation. So kindly do prepare in a way that you can present your points in 2 minutes. I know it's a very limited time, but please let's try so that many others can speak. So Dr. Milton, over to you.
Guys, do you see like a strawberry? Thank you, Maj, and thank you, Hilary. I want to salute all the other panelists and the speakers, and indeed everybody that has joined this space here tonight. And as always, we pay tribute to the fallen heroes of this struggle. Their hearts and their souls, they didn't lose their life in vain, and we will continue remembering them. And on the same note, I want to salute the patriots in the DMV area of the United States that did much and presented our petitions as the Kenyan people to the IMF. I think their message was loud and clear, and we want to also salute the media houses and everybody that has ensured that that message is transmitted as loudly and as clearly as it has. Having said that, I want to also address myself to what has transpired the last few days and what Zakayo has purported to speak today, issuing threats. He is back to his old skin, his old self, the dictator that he is, the man that is a threat to the democracy of the Kenyan people. And I want to remind everybody that the William Ruto that was speaking today in Bomet is the William Ruto that addressed the nation the first time. I think that was on 26th of last month, when he called patriots reclaiming, attempting exercising their right to reclaim their country, calling them criminals, and suggesting that there was anything treasonous about the people coming out. That is the William Ruto that we are seeing. He is now cornered, and he thinks that by issuing threats, he is going to intimidate the people. The Gen Zs, the millennials, and similarly situated Kenyans want to be resoundingly clear that William Ruto, when you tell us that we come out and tell you what we want, you are being exactly what you are. Turn deaf to our demands. Don't pretend that you are not hearing. We are simply saying that you must vacate, you must dissolve that government and go home so that the Kenyan people can exercise the power how they want. And now I want to go to the points that I wanted to make. Number one, if you read the preamble of the Constitution, it talks about what the Kenyan people adopted, enacted, and gave themselves as the supreme legal framework that governs how they operate. Now, I want to remind everybody about why William Ruto, why we are calling for Zakayo to go. Ruto must go is premised on 3 points. Number one, the supremacy of the people. Number two, Ruto is being ejected by the people because he has violated the social contract with the people. And I want, if you allow me, will agree with me that if you look at Articles chapter 6 of the Constitution, William Ruto has violated every single provision in chapter 6. And that is why the Kenyan people are saying he must go. The Kenyan people are not saying that William Ruto has an opportunity to reconstitute government. He has violated the social contract. He has violated the deed of contract the Kenyan people gave him on the ballot in 2022. And I want us to be very categorical. What does chapter 6 provide? Article 75 of the Constitution speaks to the character of a leader. And I want to just make reference to that very quickly so that we have clarity, so that whenever these people are coming out to tell you that they care more about Kenya than we do, those of us calling for Ruto to go, this is exactly what we are saying. Chapter 75 of the Constitution defines the conduct of state officers, and and I can quickly refer to that a state officer shall behave, underline, shall behave, whether in public and official life, in private life, or in association with other persons, in a manner that avoids any conflict between personal interest and public or official duties. William Ruto is conflicted from Nairobi to the farthest world. Compromising any public or official interest in favor of a personal interest. Is William Ruto guilty of that? The answer is a resounding yes. Number 3, that is Article 75 1C, demeaning the office the officer holds. Has William Ruto demeaned the office of the presidency? The answer is again in the affirmative. So what does Article 75 provide? That a person who contravenes clause 1 shall be subject to the applicable disciplinary procedure for the relevant office. William Ruto has violated that. But I want to go further to Article 76 and again remind us of the financial probity of state officers. William Ruto has violated that. He is running commercial enterprises that are beneficiaries of state tenders, which is against the constitution. William Ruto has confessed to being a beneficiary of activities that are prohibited under Article 77 of the Constitution.
Dr.
He
Nyakundi,
actually,
Dr.
kindly,
Milton,
kindly.
Dr. Milton, kindly
Yes,
try to
thank
land.
you.
say that again.
Kindly try to land. We're actually giving 2 minutes.
Oh yes, okay. I'm doing that now. I'm doing that
Thank
now.
you.
I want to say that Dr. William Ruto confessed that he was apparently or allegedly given a private jet. Again, the constitution prohibits receiving of any gifts. And if you do, then those gifts are on behalf of the Kenyan people and they must be declared. When William Ruto tells the country and the world that he was given a private jet by a friend, he has violated that constitution. William Ruto has been lying with his teeth looking at Kenyans. How does he now pretend to tell us that he has not demeaned the constitution? He has not held the office of the presidency in contempt. William Ruto has violated. I want to invite us to read Article 232 of the Constitution on the principles of public service. He has violated every one provision of those under Article 232. William Ruto has failed as a symbol of national unity as required under Article 131 of the Constitution. Good people, there is nothing else William Ruto can tell the Kenyan people, and we must be angered more today that he comes to lecture us, he comes to lecture Kenyan people and speak as though the office of the presidency is a gift, is an inheritance he was given by his parents. This is a privilege that the Kenyan people gave him, and the Kenyan people are now demanding that he relinquishes. Failure to which they have to take it by force. And I want to, in conclusion, tell the Kenyan people that removal of a president is provided for in the constitution. And therefore, anybody telling us that we have to wait for 2027 is living a dream of the past. And they must be reminded and called out. The time has come. You cannot operate as Moi without the constitution that Moi had. You cannot operate as Moi without the information space that the people lacked during the Moi regime. This is a new era, and everybody must wake up and smell the coffee. And the sooner William Ruto realizes that and vacates, the better for everybody. He needs to pick the cue from Emmanuel Macron, who actually called for a snap election when he realized that the rug was being pulled under his feet. This is a time that patriots must come out, and the funding of the revolution is the pain that the Kenyan people have been subjected to under the illegitimate exercise of power by William Ruto and his cartel. I drop the mic and hand over
Thank you so much.
back
Thank
to
you
the
so much,
host.
Dr. Milton Nyakundi. And now, guys, I do not want to appear like I'm biased, but we have over 100 people.
By William Ruto and his cartel.
Okay.
I
Please,
drop the
yeah,
mic
please mute.
and hand over
Okay.
back.
Thank you. So we don't want to appear like we are being biased, but we have over 100 people already requesting. So I want to also request the next speakers to really restrict to 2 minutes each. Simon, you're next. Over to you.
Okay, thank you for the mic. I think I'm audible enough. Am I audible?
Loud and clear.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm Simon. I'm from Nakuru. So I had a question for Dr. Miguna. Like, is it in order, like, we have more than 40 tribes in Kenya, and we have Kikuyu, who are currently having like 7 top seats at the government, since they are doing this with their chest. They are having their, like, we know the parliament we have, it will, the CSS who are being nominated, they will go through the parliament, since the, like, we don't have a parliament here. Is it in order, like, we have those ethnics, or like they are not being heard about their voices, ama bado tunafaa kuwa like it's Kikuyu and Kalenjin and the Luya people? So that's the first question. The other thing I want to tell people, it's on Tuesday. Please, people, let's be there. And one thing I noted, most of us think police are our best friends. They are no longer our friends. And I'm advocating for this. They are no longer our friends. They are beating us, they are killing us. I think from next week, we are not going to be friends. We also have weapons. We can do to them what they are doing to us. I'm not happy seeing like my people of my age being killed by the police. Like what happened last week on in Nakuru, it's something like still in my mind, and I'm feeling like I'm just fed up with this government. Those police have orders from above. That boy who was killed there, he was not in the demos, but he was killed. He was just carrying like a paper bag from the supermarket. He was going home. People, police are not our friends. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Simon Gathoni, for really keeping it within time, and our condolences. And really, it's unfortunate. Police brutality has always been a problem in Kenya and keeps really taking away lives. Daktari is noting the questions, and then I think after 3 to 4 speakers, he will chime in, or if he wants to chime in between, he's free to chime in. I see Ask You dropped, so let's go by Blues. Blues, 2 minutes each. A Bluesman committee. Okay, he's not speaking.
Okay, thank you,
Yes, yeah.
thank you. Thank you so much. So I'd like to start by saying that urging the revolutionaries to take note of the fact that the government is doing all it can to infiltrate the demonstrations. So to be at least keen, every step we make, we try to be as effective as possible, because we see so many times it becomes boring due to infiltration. And then next, I've had so many people asking about that the movement no longer has agendas due to like the rejection of the bill. But I urge the influencers to be driving some agendas actively, such as the arrest of the corrupt people, and to try and mention them precisely. Then the to okay we should also bring the agenda of the story of recycling those CSS who are recycled. So we should be bringing them out clearly, loudly, in terms of posters and everything, so that they can be seen as the main agendas that we have. And then also the justice for the fallen soldiers also should be a key agenda, which is being shown through posters and posts every day, so that we are not mocked like we don't have any agendas as per now. And then this story of that we are leaderless, and also I'd also like those who are doubting whether being leaderless can work. I think the main reason for being leaderless is not to have anyone calling off the demonstrations so that they go for negotiation. So again, I'd like to encourage activists to prepare some memoranda, and also so that they can, like, okay, to prepare some memoranda and present to the president, so that, like, we can be seen, at least we are approaching for dialogue, but not anyone calling off the demos. I hope I'm clear a bit. And then something else. I've noticed that so many of the demos that we had were always successful, but not very successful, simply because maybe zinakuja kushika late, around maybe 3 to 4, when now night is approaching. I have this idea which I always talk about in many spaces, that we try and insist on starting demos early. If we start demos as early as 7 a.m. and maybe by 8 we are seeing something tangible on the streets, everyone will be encouraged to come out, and it will be even 5 times more effective than it could have been when it started at maybe 10 or 11 or later. Something again I'd add is about education, just insisting, let's keep on educating people out there, because there are some people who still feel like Gen Z, they are not genuine. Our gen, like, we are just being anarchist. So let's continue educating people both online and offline. Mostly insist on the fact that the country is not going in the right direction. That is mostly in terms of debts, accountability, and also our okay, voters. Like, as voters, we don't prioritize the right the right priorities when looking for who to vote. Like, I see so many people like to vote for someone who is close to some powerful people, like the presidential candidates. And we should educate people that when you elect someone who is close to a powerful presidential candidate, that person now is even able to steal more than even someone who is not closer to that candidate. So I think that is all.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Bluesman, comedian. Yes, and I would like to encourage that we really keep it the time 2 minutes each. And so I forgot to mention to Gadoni Simon, because I understand that he was very frustrated and even talked about arming himself against the police. I'd like to emphasize that this gives power to the oppressor. Because when they brutalize you and you are armed, also they'll say they are defending themselves. So at the moment, the demonstrations should be and have been peaceful. So once you arm yourself, you're going to be mistaken as a goon, even though you are defending yourself. So we take what you say with concern, but I would really just warn against, arming oneself as a civilian. It can cause a lot of chaos that I want to put on record. Now, let's proceed with engineer. Engineer has dropped. Mork, please go. Yeah. Mork, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Maj. Thank you, guys. Thank you, the host and the co-host, and the guys in the speaker and the guys in the listener. Yeah. First of all, I just want to thank the Kenyan people for coming out in the street to ensure that the demand for the good governance. That is that's something that is its time has come, and we need to ensure that it has come to pass. I don't have much to say, but I just want to tell people that we should remain focused, and we should have a main agenda, that is Ruto must go. And also, this one I said in one of the one of the spaces yesterday. We really need to focus because right now the member of parliaments are coming back, and I know there will be some of the ones that the president would force them to go through and pass. For example, the reintroduction of the office of the first ladies and all that. As a people, we should ensure that we cripple the parliament. Parliament should remain null and void, and we should ensure that that the members of parliament are stopped from even attending their sessions, so that we remain as we said that okay, we are focusing on Ruto must go, and when Ruto is going, he need to go with everybody, everyone in that government, not only the CS, even the MPs need to go with Ruto. So people need to be focused, and people need not to take the fear. I know they will be selling fear to people, like the today's gathering where the president really sold a great fear that they will dealt with people excessively, and that means according to his speech, the guy is even ready to do the worst. People should not back down, and people should not do anything, but people should focus on Ruto must go. Thank you much. I will stop at there and let other speakers go. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Hannah, over to you. And I see Dr. Mkawasi is on with us. Welcome on board. Hannah, over to you. Hannah, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, Marge. Can I come in a few minutes, please?
That's all right. So we go to the Godfather. Godfather, take a go.
Thank you, Marge. Thank you, Hillary, the host, the other co-host, and our key speakers, the General, Migaya Cage. I think Agustino Neto is not yet here, among others, and those who have already given their sentiments on this current affair that is developing, has been developing for the past few weeks, if not a month, in the country. So mine is very simple and very quick. To begin with, I'm asking our speakers, our panelists today. We see Occupy JKIA trending. This is something that has been mooted before. Now we are at it, and it seems like today it was the number one trending hashtag, so to speak, in the country, which means on the 23rd of July, we are going to occupy the JKIA. What portends, or what are the aspects of trying to occupy JKIA, apart from on the face value we are trying to stop international travel so that the country can actually understand that we are serious? Can we also have occupy Uhuru Park as well as JKIA? That's also another question that I'm also pushing, so that our speakers are going to answer, so that we have some clarity, and maybe that will also be very interesting in terms of trying to stretch the police force in terms of how much they may have to deal with. And lastly, the revolution is on. No retreat, no surrender. Patriots, let's march forward. Thank you so much, Madge, and the other co-host, and Hillary, and let's hear others. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I would like to give this opportunity to Dr. Mkawasi, if you're ready to say something before we proceed here.
Thank you so much, Mudge and Hillary. So a quick comment I'd like to make is, as we've been proceeding and watching things unfolding, that I've been interacting quite some with a good number of reactionary voices. So I'd like to speak a little bit on this. Now, if you voted for Ruto thinking that he will bring down dynasties, and you say he did bring down dynasties, and that he will give back Kenya to the ordinary Mwananchi, now, what triggered the revolution, which is the finance bill, proved that that was a wrong promise, because all he did was snatch the system from the dynasties and inject it with steroids. Because this right now, what we are watching is like dynasties on steroids. All demands from reactionaries who are claiming they are on the side of the revolutionaries miss one thing, and this is how you'll recognize them. They strategically go silent on acknowledging stolen funds, stolen public funds way back from Kenyatta 1. A key reason why the hideous and inhuman injustices of injustice of poverty is going on right now. I mean, there's no way you can see your relatives or you yourself experiencing the level of poverty that is going on right now, and think that the dynasties have been removed and we are on our way to becoming a better country, and that we should give a chance to what is unfolding. That is something that I think we have to be careful about when we start having people who are telling us, you know what, I'm not quite sure about where you guys are going with the revolution. I think you should just wait for the old guards to make things right. The revolution you have triggered is ours too, we in the diaspora. And I think this is an important thing for me to mention to my diaspora friends. Kenyans abroad we have to pull our resources, both financial and intellectual, in providing the support necessary to build the Kenya that Kenyans have already articulated they want. And that Kenya is already ideally in the constitution. We went through this whole constitution revamping. It's there. Transforming those ideals into reality is the work of the revolution. We have the map, we know the destination, we need the vehicle and the fuel to get there, and that is what revolutions do. So it's necessarily what I'm looking at is a journey of a people that are taking us from unrealized ideals to a reality. Now, the reality of a successful revolution becomes a nation that accommodates all the citizens by providing opportunities and the possibilities that we're looking for. It doesn't take much for a Kenyan abroad to go back home and just see where we are. I mean, you can go there with all your money and have a good time, but you know the reality and you cannot be blind to that. No matter what, you cannot be blind to that. Now, if along this journey that has been parked by Gen Z, the drivers entrusted with leadership become rogue or something, then the revolution, it becomes necessary to offload whoever it is. So you also have to look at whoever it is who's driving this bus, and you have to always be conscious of where you're going. Where are we going? There's this notion of a leaderless movement, and that does not mean that it lacks leadership. So a leaderless movement, we may not be able to see who's behind it. We may have a group of people who are going towards a certain destination. But one of the most important things is to also figure out how to create that leadership structure. Beware of the pitfalls of leaderless revolutions, for example, like the Occupy Wall Street. It had you can say its gains, because that will make you avoid the mistakes that were made before. The most important thing for me, I think, is to have an unbreakable core. How you create that unbreakable core is for you guys to figure out, and then you tell us what it is that we need from here. Because one thing we might know, we get involved every day with what's going on the ground, but we still have the advantage of having physical safety. And another thing I'd like to say, because this is something that is said a lot by people around me, that these are kids, they're younger than us, your kids and nephews and nieces age, they really are going to need help. Now, it's for all of us. This revolution is for all of us because we're all engaged in building a Kenya. Be bold in your ability to actually form a government if that becomes the place to go. Peaceful revolutions, for example, the Velvet Revolution, which I've mentioned before, that were led by a generation as educated and as knowledgeable as you guys have shown to be. These guys formed a government when they least expected to stand in that place. They formed a government using a very peaceful revolution, and matter of fact, they steered that same country into becoming two sovereign states. So, I mean, they did this incredible thing with a peaceful revolution and young people, university students. And to date, those nations stand strong. So you guys can do even greater things. You have to be able to stand in that space and say boldly, yes, we can be able to form the government, the next government, because we have proved we have the intellectual capacity and we know what we want. So we guys, me, my diaspora people here, I'm saying stand by. Let's stand by. Let's be able to give the resources, whatever kind that's needed on the ground. But let's not watch the acceptance by reactionaries of something that we see as recycling the same rot, recycling the same system that has for decades brought us to where we are. Because for crying out loud, we have to at least say, no, we know what our relatives are going through. We know this. We know the fees we pay all the time, the hospital bills. I mean, we can be on the phone, you're somewhere far away, but you're on the phone with someone who's running through hospitals, looking for the cheapest hospital to get their kid treated. And I'm not saying this because I'm making it up. I'm saying it because I've been there. So these are not realities that we don't know of. They're realities we share. And we in the diaspora have to be able to say no. We've got to be able to be a part of this revolution in some form, a very effective form. Over to you, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Harry, for the very, solid submission there. And so now we move to Josephine. And if any of the speakers is speaking longer than 2 minutes, it's because we have guest speakers also. So don't feel like we're being biased. Josephine, over to you. 2 minutes, please.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Thank you so much, every and co-host and fellow Kenyans. Both in Kenya and diaspora, I want to say good evening. I thank you also for giving me this opportunity to ask. And my first question, I would want to direct it to Dr. Miguna. And this is my question for you. Do you think it's the ideal time now we push for amendment of our constitution so that we can limit positions of leadership and how leadership is deliberated and given to recycling leaders who have ever been in offices in memory, and you want to die in the positions without letting other people get these positions? Second, do you think that if we do that, it would eradicate the levels of corruption? Given that at least somebody knowing that I am in the government for 10 years, that means before I get to that position, my lifestyle have been audited, and any other more monies that I would be having, I should be accountable to the citizens of Kenya, and that will keep away the monopoly of people thinking that they are superior and they own this country at our mandate and they can just take us the way they want. So those are my two questions, and my input to Tuesday's incoming Occupy all the airports. I am all the way from Mombasa, and I believe I will be out there in Mombasa doing the needful, like any other Kenyan, fighting for our rights and ensuring that we meet the standards of what we need, because we are entitled to good governance, we are entitled to quality services and with no corruption, we are entitled to get essential documents within less than a week, but this is not happening. So that leaves us in dilemma as citizens. You realize that you need an ID, but you cannot get it within the right time unless you bribe. You need a passport, you cannot get it until you bribe. You need a good certificate of good conduct, and all the same. Having said that, I would also find it ideal that also Dr. Miguna, you would advise on what do you think of us getting some few people who will be actually prioritizing our agendas as we move forward. And I believe that we need to have some leaders per se, not leaders per se, but people who can, once we bring the ideas together, we can actually prioritize them and they say, this comes as priority number 1, number 2, and number 3, so that we don't look like we are in a confused mood, not being able to say what are we doing, and we keep on deliberating on what are we doing, what are we supposed to do first. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate if you give me that feedback. Thank you.
Yes, and thanks you so much,
But
Josephine. Just a moment, Hillary. Thanks, Josephine. I wanted to say I think this is the time that Dr. Ray should really just chime in. But before he does, Hillary, over to you.
yeah, Dr. as you come in, I've seen Gerotich join us. She's one of the speakers that was invited to come and share the idea. Otherwise, thank you so much. Dr. Back to you.
Good evening, everyone,
Good
and
evening.
good afternoon if you are joining us from different time zones. Um, I have been listening keenly to the contributors, and all of them are on point. I will start by expressing my condolences to those who have lost loved ones. And I would want to express my concern that we have as of now, about 300 missing persons, people who have simply vanished or disappeared, and whose whereabouts are not known. I had raised a concern a week ago about information I had received concerning hundreds of people who were killed in Githurai and whose bodies have not been traced, and who I understood, yet to be verified, that they were cremated at the Kahao barracks. I still would like to challenge the Kenya National Commission for Human Rights, the Law Society of Kenya, the defenders, various human rights defenders organizations, the media, the DCI, and various government entities, including Ruto himself, to be able to produce a list of all the missing Kenyans since the protests began. We need to have a clear idea as to how many people have actually been abducted, how many people have lost their lives or have been killed, how many people are injured, and how many have simply disappeared. And we would want to assume that those who are missing are probably dead, because a human being does not go missing. These people were active just weeks ago. They engaged in protests, and they cannot simply disappear. Two, I would want to address the issue of the so-called government pathologist Johansen Oduor's declaration that the decapitated and mutilated bodies that were found at the quarry had no evidence of bullets in them. One, I want to note that all the bodies had decomposed and were at different levels of decomposition. All the bodies were mutilated, meaning that there was no body that was intact and had been packed into sacks. It is, I believe, impossible for anyone to imagine that Dr. Oduor would have been able to examine decomposing bodies and trace bullets that had killed them if that is how they had died. It is also impossible for anyone to know whether these bodies had been tortured before the individual succumbed to torture. All of them were killed. All of them were dumped near police station. We can all reasonably conclude that all of them probably were killed by security forces. And we need answers. We need answers now, and we don't want excuses. It is important for us to note, my third point, that as we speak today, Finance Bill 2024 is the law. It automatically became law on July the 18th. after 21 days had expired from the time that the president or Ruto purportedly rejected it. It has not been repealed by the National Assembly. And we have not had Ruto or anybody or any of the leaders at the National Assembly say that there is an intention to repeal it. Therefore, we have to say all the people Ruto has killed so far will not get justice until all the grievances for which they participated at the protests are addressed. And that starts with Ruto himself. My fifth point is Ruto has no tenure. He has no security of tenure. Professor Migaya Kech has tenure at the University of Nairobi as a distinguished professor of law, but or of the university, because I think he's a distinguished professor. And once you're a distinguished professor, you're a professor of everything. But Ruto has no tenure. The 5 years that Kenyans delegated to him the power to govern, not to rule, was a temporary delegation. It was not a permanent delegation. The delegated power was withdrawn on the 25th of June, and Ruto stands popularly impeached by the people. Therefore, he is legitimately in power, and all the threats he's issuing against the people are an aggravation to the grievances that we had when the people took to the streets and declared that they had withdrawn their delegated power to him. Therefore, Ruto's declaration of war on the people is a declaration of war on all Kenyans, and it's a declaration of war on the Constitution of Kenya, which vests the power to recall him as their delegated leader back to where they want him, home. We want unity of purpose. We want people to realize that no matter our differences, and these differences could be generational, these differences could be ideological, these differences could be intellectual, these differences could be gender, these differences could be tactical or strategic. We have to realize that the only thing that must unite us, and unite us now, is that all Kenyans feel that Ruto has offended them to a point that it cannot be cured. The looting of the country has reached a stage where it having them apprehended, charged, and tried and convicted, and then sentenced, and the properties they have looted repatriated, is recycling them. We have Chirchir reappointed to a bigger ministry than where he looted before. And remember, this man started looting at the Interim Independent Electoral Commission. He was involved in the Chicken Gate. Then he graduated to the Ministry of Energy. And the former despot Uhuru fired him because of corruption. But Ruto felt, in his lack of wisdom, that this is the man he needed in the same ministry where he had been fired for corruption. And he continued to be corrupt. And he was recently fired for corruption. Then Ruto brings him back. That shows you that Ruto is redeemable. There is no discussion, no dialogue, or any kind of reprieve or anything that will change this man. He thinks that after he has killed a number of Kenyans and abducted them and disappeared them, that he has scared the Gen Zs and the millennials and the patriotic revolutionaries who have been facing him every week on the street. And the time has come when we should demonstrate to Ruto through action that we are not backing down. How do we do that? My humble submission is that we should have marathon daily demonstrations and protests. And these daily marathon demonstrations should take place all over the country. Whether on Tuesday, some of the patriots will head to JKIA, others must head elsewhere. Because if you all head to JKIA, he will marshal his goons to JKI only. Then we will leave the rest of the country for him to roam about and to threaten us. We have to scatter his goons everywhere. As many people are heading towards JKIA, many people must head to Parliament Square and Arambe House and the CBD and occupy all of it. Occupy everywhere should have meaning. When patriots in Mombasa, in Nyanza, in Western, at the coast, at all and in all counties, gather in large numbers, wear Ruto's goons down until he falls. The last thing I would like to say is in answer to the three, I believe there were 3 or 4 people that asked questions before I conclude. Number one, Simon Gathoni said, police are not our friends. We also have weapons. We can use them. Marge was right. Yes, police of Kenya have demonstrated, at least the majority of them, that they are not our friends, that they are serving a tyrant and they are harming us. And it is not in our place to fall into the trap of arming ourselves to confront them. Because when you do that, you may have to form an army to fight them. We don't have time. We don't have the resources. We don't have the arms. They will just pick us one at a time, and it will actually serve their interest in the sense that they can now say we are violent, we are chaotic, we are anarchists, and the world and the press will more than happily champion that trumpet. We cannot give them that. We have to remain peaceful. We have to remain organized. We have to remain fearless. And it is through that we are going to wear them down. Just like many other countries have gained and won a revolution peacefully by being unarmed. They did so in France in 1789. They did so in Sweden in 1809. They did so in Norway in 1814. They did so in the Netherlands in 1848. They did so in Austria in 1918. They did so in Turkey or Turkey in 1923. There was a mixture of that and armed struggle in Cuba in 1959. They did so in Portugal in 1974. They did so in Bahrain in 1971. They did so in Spain in 1978. They did so in Philippines in 1986. They did so in South Korea in 1987. They did so in Poland, where it was basically the workers protesting continuously for years in 1988. They did so in the Czech Republic in 1989. They did so in East Germany in 1989. They did so in Romania in 1989. They did so in Indonesia in 1998. They did so in Serbia in the year 2000. They did so in Georgia the year 2003. They did so in Nepal in 2006. They did so in Myanmar with mixed results in 2011 because the military eventually overthrew the revolutionaries. But they succeeded in 2011. They did so in Ukraine in 2014. And they recently did so in uh, the Philippines again. And this history of resistance has always resulted in the country becoming more developed, more prosperous, more industrialized, and the standard of living of the people have always been better from the regime that was replaced. So we can do it too. People were asking me on X, oh, Miguna, all the examples you've given are not in Africa. Kenya is going to be the first